The parasha of this morning is known as Parasha Noah. This is the second parasha from the Torah as we restart and start our new cycle of the Torah reading. So this parasha is very, very important, and we are going to see what God is trying to explain to us, is trying to teach us concerning this parasha. What is the meaning of the name Noah? The meaning of the name Noah is known. The meaning is calmness, or to rest, calmness, to be calm. That is the meaning of the name Noah. In Parashat Noah, the Torah relates how Adonai chose the righteous Noah to save the world from Hamas, which corresponds to thieves, robbery, and promiscuity, by building an ark that would keep him and his family alive, while all other evil would drown in the flood, which was to last 40 days and 40 nights. Noah and his family are saved, and the rainbow sign of the covenant is revealed. The parasha also details the event after the flood, the birth of and the dispersal of the nations, the building of the Tower of Babel, and the return of mankind to disparity. The parasha ends with the hope, the birth of Abraham, which is Abraham, who is to be chosen by Adonai to father the nation of Israel. The year of the flood was 1656 after the creation of the world of the earth. What am I trying to let us know here? He said that God chose a man whose name is Noah. And the Torah explained the reason why God, the Almighty, chose him. There is a quality that Noah had that the other they don't have. There is a quality that is in this man that the others they don't even care about. There is a thing that is going on in his mind that the other they don't care. The other even tell him, this is an old man. This man is of the old days. This man is bigot. This man is a stupid man. He doesn't understand civilization. This man, he doesn't understand, he doesn't know how to enjoy life. This man, he doesn't behave like us. He's none of us. And for that reason, the Lord chose him, because Noah was a man of justice. The Torah said he was a perfect man in his day. 10 generations after the creation of Adam, Harishon, the first man, the world has been corrupted. Vatishahi Ares Lifnei Elohim. And the world was in a spiritually destroyed state before Adonai. Rashi explained that the term Vatishahi refers specifically to immorality and idol worship. Vatimele Ares Hamas. And the land was filled with thievery. Adonai decided to flood the world, saving only Noah and his family, the only righteous individual. Through them, the new world will be built. The world was filled with thievery. The world was spiritually sick, the Torah said. The world was in a state of commotion. The world, God has already ordered orders in the world in the beginning. When God created the world out of chaos, understand it was chaotic in the beginning. And God rendered order in the universe. And there was order in the universe, in the physical and the spiritual universe. But man has come again to bring chaos into the universe. By their action, by our deed, by our doing, by not obeying the instruction of the Holy One, blessed be He. We decided to say, you know what? We are going to do it our own way. We don't need Him again. You know what? He is far away from us. We don't even see Him. He is located in some galaxy. He is located outside of this world. He doesn't even understand what we are facing. So let us do it our own way. Just 10 generations after the creation of the first man, Adam Hashiron. Just only 10 generations, and that is it. Man has turned back into an animal. We allow our animalistic part of our being to take control of us over our soul. We degenerated into the animalistic form. We begin to act like an animal, not like a human being, like an animal. Vayome Elohim le Noah kesko basar ba lifanai. And Adonai said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me. The end of all flesh has come before me. Ki Malaares Hamas. Because the land has been filled with thievery. Because the land has been filled with greed. Because the land is filled with evil. We allow our greed to take control. I want you to understand that it is not today that we have Wall Street. Wall Street has been of old. We are just reinventing it. The Torah said there's nothing new under the sun. Everything is of old. Do you think that the Wall Street that we have now, these greedy people, do you think it is just now? No. This has been from the beginning, from the time of Adam, from the time of Noah that we're just reading. Greed and thievery, evil, take control of the entire world. Sexual immorality everywhere. People are jumping and they get married and they marry and they do whatsoever they want. They tell you our life is long. God it doesn't concern him. He doesn't even know what we are doing. We live 800 years, we live 900 years, we live 700 years, we have time. Let's do whatever we want to do to enjoy ourselves. That was their thought in those days. Interestingly, with all of major sins being performed, the decree was sealed due to thievery. The fate of the world of Noah was sealed because of what? Because of greed. Because of thievery. People stealing what does not belong to them. People depriving others their life and their livelihood. People just violent everywhere, killing, murders. Because you have power, you can oppress the poor. Because you have strength, you can do whatever you want to do. Because you are in control, nobody is above you. That was the actions and that was their doing at that time, which we can see that is still happening at this moment. The Or-Gadayahu explained that thievery is at the very core of every sin. The Or-Gadayahu state, it explained that violence, that idolatry, that immorality, that greed is at the very core of every sin. Every person is allotted a certain amount of time and energy on this planet. This is given to allow the individual to build a relationship with his creator by spiritually adding to this world that which only he can add. I repeat again, it's very important, please listen. Every person is allotted, or every person is given a certain amount of time and energy on this planet. It is given to you free of charge. God does not charge you money. God did not say, buy life from me. No, God gave it to you free. And he is saying, what is the purpose of God giving us this energy and this life free of charge? It is for us to build a relationship with our Creator. A spiritual connection to connect with our Creator. To build a higher level of spirituality on this planet. As God has given us this free life. God did not ask you to build a religion. God does not ask us to be religious, then you shall be saved. No. God is saying, when you have a personal relationship with me, it is personal, it is exclusive. When you build a personal relationship with me, then the kingdom of God is in you. God has given us this life that we should add spirituality into the world. A positive one, I mean. Every moment is measured and precious. Every moment of our life. every moment, every part of our being is measured, and it is very, very precious. Why are we wasting our time to do that which is evil? In the Haftorah, it is written, Isaiah chapter 55, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 55, verse 1. I read, "Oh, everyone who is thirsty, come to the water, even one with no money. Go, buy and eat. Go and buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you weigh out money without getting bread and exert yourself for that which does not satisfy?" Everybody is asked to come and drink from the fountains of life. Everybody is asked to come and take the water. It's free of charge. You don't have to buy it. Why is men like evil than good? Why is men love to waste their time in things that does not profit? Why do we want to waste all our life into things that is zero? The only one is calling us, say, come unto me. All ye that labor and with heavy laden, come, I will give you rest. But man said no. He rather continue to be upon, he rather allow those loads to continue to oppress him down, to be upon him, than to come into life. Why do we attract ourselves into darkness instead of us to attract ourselves into light? Why pay for that does not profit? Come and drink. The water is free. When the person take this gift and abuse it, then there is a problem. The gift of God to us, the gift of life, is free. God has given us this free gift just like that. But when we now take it and start abusing it, then there is a problem. Why do we take the gift of life and turn it upside down and abuse it? Why do we take this free will and begin to abuse it? The free will that God has given us is for us to decide and to choose and to do that which is right before Him, to do justice before Him, to do what is good, to follow the path of righteousness. But man has decided to take the gift of this gift, this precious gift, this gift for you to decide by yourself, this free will gift. We have decided to take it and use it in a negative way. When one's energy is used to perform an act that distance himself from his creator by spiritually polluting the world, that constitutes thievery in its most basic sense. Stealing the power granted to us by the Holy One, blessed be He, to eternally help ourselves by using it to infinitely hurt ourselves. When the earth is filled with such acts, that is the time of the end of our flesh. When we take this power, when we take this strength, when we take this understanding, when we take this wisdom and start abusing it, using it in a negative way, then there's a problem somewhere. Then the end of our flesh has come. When we begin to use it in a thievery way, what I mean, when we begin to become so greedy. Greed has entered into our DNA. It is already ingrained in our blood. Why that? Understand, there is positive greed and there is a negative greed. When you envy to do something that is good, that is better. But when you when you begin to envy your brother in a negative way, to destroy him, to press him down, to oppress him, to take the last cent that he has, and you have millions and billions, and your brother only have 1 cent, and you still take that cent out of him, how is he going to eat? Do you even imagine that? Then you are pressing his last clothes, you take it away from him, you make him naked before the elements. You destroy his house, you take away his shelter. Where is the justice? This is what is called greed. You only think about yourself alone. We only think about ourselves alone. Only me, my children, and my wife. The rest, I don't care. But don't you know that we are all born of one fathers? Don't you know that we are all brothers and sisters? Don't you know that we are all the descendant of one man, the descendant of Adam, the descendant of Noah? Why are we so greedy? Why do we allow greed to creep into our life and to destroy it? It is a virus, a dangerous one. When greed creeps in, it destroys everything in its path. The Kli Yakar writes that the term Kesko Basar, the end of all flesh, is referring to Yom HaMitzah, the day of death. Yom HaMitzah means the day of death. Bad Fanai, Adonai tell Noah that it has come before him, that the end of all flesh has come before him. God is telling Noah, this is what is going to happen. I am done with them. I am done with this creation. I am done with these people. These people, they refuse to listen and to heed my voice. I am done with them. No one thinks of me. The Holy One is saying, their lives are so long, so no one feels threatened by the consequence of their action, which is true. Their life is so long, 900, 1,000, 600, 500 years. It's still long. They don't think about God. God is not in the picture. The Holy One is not at all in the picture, because they don't think that they are going to face the consequence of their actions. They rob and plunder without realizing that the Yom HaMitzah will take it away from them. As it is said in Shovot Halevovo, which writes, a person can spend his whole life amassing fortune, amassing wealth, that his wife will enjoy with a second husband. Can you imagine that? A man can spend all his life amassing wealth. A man can spend all his life accumulating fortunes, money, gold, diamond, everything, only for the Yom HaMitzah to come and take it away from him. For death to come and take the man away. And all the fortunes, all the money, or everything that he has amassed, right, his wife will spend it with her second husband. So, what is the purpose of you amassing all wealth? That your wife will come and spend with another man? Spend your time. Give your life, give your time to the Holy One. Spend your time with the Holy One, because that is what that profits. You work all your life, you work 24 hours. You think that by working 24 hours, that is when you are going to be wealthy. No. You think, but I'm not saying do not work, I'm not saying do not be hardworking, but you have to work smart, not work hard. Smartness is what it takes. There is time for everything under the sun, the Torah said. The time for the Holy One, the time for your family, the time for your wife, the time for your children, the time to amass wealth. You see, you have to create all those times. The time for the synagogue, the time to study the Torah. There is time for everything under the sun. But when you take all this time and you say you want to use it only to amass, when you die, the wealth will be left behind. And your wife will spend that wealth with another man. In the face of all this, or in the face of all this, stands Noah, a righteous and complete individual. Only he and his family didn't join the depravity of the society, because this society have degraded into the state of an animal. Even though an animal were even better than us back then. Yet the prophet Yeshayahu in chapter 54 verse 9 referred to the flood water as made Noah, the water of Noah. We are accustomed to Noah's name being used in regard to the miracle of his survival. Noah's ark, Noah's this, Noah that, Noah this, Noah that. Why? But in what way was Noah held responsible for the destruction that the flood was called by his name? What was the responsibility of Noah? What was his offense? Why are we calling it the water of Noah? Or why are we calling it the ark of Noah? Hazar explained that the flood water were called by his name because he didn't pray for his generation to be saved. Why? In fact, didn't Noah pray? They said they called this flood Noah's flood because Noah did not pray for his generation in his day. Was that true, or is that true? Why? Didn't Noah pray? There's a lot of midrashim about that. Of course, Noah prayed, he preached, but nobody were listening. There is no rain, and there can never be rain. Right? Because we've never seen rain. If you have never seen something, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Oh, no, this man is a stupid man, he's a foolish man. This man has smoking some weed that his brain is turning. This man is very high, he's drunk, he doesn't understand what he is saying. Have you ever seen a rain in your entire life? There is no rain. So let us continue to enjoy and smoke and be high and give our children to marry and continue to become violent. Continue in our evil path. There is no judgment. Everything is going in a circle. In order to understand this, we need to have some background information. A bit later on the Bereshit, we will learn that Adonai, while planning to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, revealed his intention to Abraham. And it was said that, and Adonai said, "Can I do this without informing Abraham? Seeing that Abraham is going to be great and mighty. He's my servant. I will tell him what I am about to do." Abraham begins to plead with Adonai to save the cities. If they will find there 50 righteous individuals. When Adonai agreed, Abraham continued to plead to save the city for the sake of an even lesser number of righteous people. This continued until Adonai agreed not to destroy for the sake of even 10 tzaddikim, 10 righteous people. If you can find 10 righteous people in the city, I will spare it. If you can find only 10 in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, I will not destroy it. At that point, Abraham stopped praying. Hazar explained that Abraham had learned this from the generation of Noah. Noah had less than 10 tzaddikim, and their merit was not able to save the world. Abraham has learned this from the history of Noah, his forefathers. Because in the days of Noah, there were less than 10 righteous people. So that world could not be saved. You remember in the day of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham plead from 50, plead, until 10. And that even though we cannot even find 10 righteous men in the city. The only one that was saved out of the city was who? Was Lot. And it was because of the deed of Abraham that Lot was saved. No 10 righteous men in the entire series. So Abraham understood this principle. You understand that, oh no, since I cannot find 10 people in the city, of course the cities will be destroyed. There were only less than 10 righteous people in the days of Noah. We have Noah, his 3 sons, and their wife. There are just, how many of them? 8 people. 4 men and 4 women. That was it, only 8. And if we look at the gematria of that number, the number 8 means a what? A beginning, a new beginning, a new start. That God is going to create a new beginning from Noah. At first glance, this might seem to explain why Noah didn't pray. However, with further thought, it clearly doesn't surface, as Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitch asked. If Noah also understands that 10 wouldn't save the world, and that was the reason why he didn't pray, why was he held accountable? Why the flood water were labeled the water of Noah? Rabbi Chaim Shmulevitch said, why is it that this water was called the water of Noah? Why is Noah responsible? Why is Noah held accountable for this? Noah lived in a stormy world. And that was even before the water of the flood came along. The world around him was irredeemable, saturated with corruption. Adonai regretted having created mankind. As he said, I regret creating human. Free will was a failed experiment. And Adonai was ready to abort the entire creation, if not for one man and his family, Noah. The experiment of free will was a failed experiment. The experiment that God is performing, giving us free will, was failing. And the Holy One, blessed be He, understood that, this experiment is failing. But there is one man. But there is only a man and his family. This man and his family, they keep the way of the Torah. Even though the Torah was not given, but they observe it. They kept the way of the Torah. And so therefore, the God of all the ends of the earth, the God of judgment, the God of justice, will not destroy the evil together with the good. You understood that Noah was good. The Torah testified about that. The Torah said that Noah was perfect in his days. He was a good man. For some reason, he found grace in the eyes of Adonai. The Holy Torah titled Noah with adjectives. Any one of us will be thrilled to approximate a complete righteous man. The 64,000 question is how he was able to remain untouched and pure like rain in a world whose value were hostile to everything he lived for. It is a profoundly relevant question. Just how did he do it? How did Noah achieve this? In a world that was hostile to his being, in a world that was hostile to his way of life, in a world that is hostile to him as a person, how did he achieve this level? How did he achieve being not polluted like them? Because remember, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. Where you live affects you. Spiritually and physically, psychologically, it affects you. But how come that this does not affect this man, Noah? How did he do it? How did he achieve this great feat? It could be that the hint is right there at the very beginning of the verse. These are the generation of Noah. Noah, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot states a spiritual principle. A mitzvah generates another mitzvah, and Aviva produces Aviros. There is a momentum to our behavior and choices, and like with any muscle, there is a strengthening that results from exercising a given length. These are the generation of Noah. Noah, the meaning of the name, Noah, meaning calmness. The meaning of the name, Noah, meaning to rest. We can see why their actions, we can see why their society value does not affect him. Because Noah was calm. His name was affecting him. That is why the Torah is talking about giving a good name to your children. Because the destiny of your children can be found in their names. Noah was calm. Noah was easygoing man. He understood that he cannot overreact to what is going on. Let's see. Noah means calmness. Noah, the man specialized in the trait of Noah, calmness. He was not reactive to the world around. When one is reactive, they are being controlled and shaped by the environment. They have forfeited their freedom largely to circumstances. When a person chooses to act rather than react, then they are free to decide what is right things to do. I repeat again, please, it's very important. Listen. When he said, he was not reactive to the world around him. Noah was not reactive to the world around him. He was calm. He was resting. He was calm. When one is reactive, they are being controlled and shaped by their environment. When you have external stimulus that attacks you and you react violently and you react to that external stimulus or to that external stimulus, then you will be shaped by your environment. You will be shaped by your environment. I repeat again, let me make it very, very clear. When you react to your surrounding, when you react to your environment, when you react to what you are seeing, you will be shaped. You are being controlled. Because you are losing your free will. You are losing your freedom to be calm and to decide what is right and what is good. Because you are reacting violently to what is coming externally, either mentally or physically. And the Holy One is saying, you have to do what? You have to relax. You have to be calm. You don't have to. If you react, you lose your sense. You lose your being because you are reacting violently to what? It doesn't even have. You don't have to waste your time or your being in reacting. If you react, you have forfeited your freedom largely to the circumstances. When the person chooses to act rather than to react, then they are free to decide what is right things to do. Instead of you reacting, you do what? You act. There is difference between reacting and to act. So, what is reacting then? When somebody reacts to a thing, it is an ability to respond to physical or to a physical or mental external stimulus. That is the definition of reaction, to react. And if we look at it from a chemical point of view, reacting or reaction is a violent act, is a violent act whereby a compound or an atom is reacting to another atom, either to form another substance. So therefore, we don't have to do what? To react, but we don't have to do what? We have to act calmly, easy, not allowing the external pressure to shape our mind, to shape our being, to shape our spiritual life. We always have to calm, because the trick of the enemy, remember, the trick of the enemy is to provoke you. Once he provokes you to act, you are going to miss your step. His plan is to always attack and to make you to lose your defense. But we as a child of God, we as the people of God, you should do what? Is to calm. We always take people think, why is this man not reacting? Why is this person is so calm? In spite of everything, he doesn't react. Because you have to calculate your way perfectly well. Yeshua, when his disciples were inside the boat and there was storm in the boat, Yeshua was calm, sleeping, resting, and his disciples went to go and wake him up. Oh, Master, Rabbi, are you not afraid? Don't you see what is going on? There is wind, there is tempest, there's all kinds of waves. The boat is going to collapse. Yeshua answered them, why do you fret yourself? Do not fret yourself, because the plan of the enemy is for you to do what? To react to what he's doing. Then he's going to accuse you. But when you don't react, you calculate your step. It's about mathematical calculation. You calculate your step and your way out. And Yeshua said, calm down. Say, must I be with you every time? You have the word in your mouth. Command. And it's going to be so. Yeshua command the wind and it was calm. So your action is very, very important. When you are calm, the enemy will want to do what? To provoke you more. The more you are calm, they want to provoke and provoke. But when they see that you are not being provoked, the enemy himself gets angry. So I have tried all my best for this man, but this man is not provoked. He's always calm. He always calculates his step. So that is the life of Noah. The more this power of Noah is exercised, the stronger it becomes. Noah was the master of this trait, Noah, to be calm, calmness, which afforded him to be the master of his destiny. So the more we exercise the power of Noah, the more we exercise the trait of Noah, which means calmness. The more we are calm, the more we become the master of our own destiny. The more we take our destiny in our hands. That is what it means. For you to take your destiny in your hands. Because you are not being provoked to action, to do anything that is wrong. You only act. When the time comes, you act. We ourselves, we provoke our Creator. We provoke God every time. We provoke and provoke and provoke. But the Holy One, blessed be He, is never been provoked. He's always calm. But when the time comes, He acts. Just like this parasha that we are reading. And the Lord God acted because of the iniquity, because of the evil that was going on in the world. There is a dispute amongst behavioral psychologists. When the rat in the Skinnerian or in the Skinnerian box perform the correct task, the psychologist reward him with a trait. In the exchange, the psychologist is telling the rat, good rat, you are doing very great. You are doing a good job. That is very nice of you. Because the rat is doing exactly what the psychologist is telling him to do. After the rat performed that good act, the psychologist gives the rat a trait, maybe a small bread. He eats. Good. Then the rat understands that if I do good, this man will give me something. So it's a kind of what? Of a bite. You do good, I give you this. It can be seen through a different lens. When the rat gets the reward for his performance, the rat may be saying to the psychologist, good psychologist, you are providing me the trait right on schedule. It is a subtle matter. Who is training who? That is the question. Who is training who? Is the psychology training the rat, or is the rat training the psychologist? Is the rat training the psychologist, or is the psychologist training the rat? Who is training who? Understand? Because when the rat does what is right, the psychologist gives a little trait. Oh, you're good. You are doing fine. What? Because the psychologist wants to understand what is in the mind of the rat. Why is the rat behaving the way he is behaving? But in the other end of it, from other perspective, you can see that actually the rat is the one training the psychologist. Because the rat is saying to the psychologist, you are a good psychologist. Good. When I do what is right, you give me my little reward. When I do what is just, you give me my little reward. So the question now is, who is training who? Am I the one training the rat, or is it the rat that is training me? As we navigate the world, we live with an illusion that we are unaffected by the culture around us. Ironically, so many who seek to express their individuality somehow manage to wear similar uniform of non-conformity. How does someone attain true independence? How do we attain true independence? Even when we try to live our life according to the Torah, people, they point finger at you. He's not like us. these are bad people. They don't believe in they don't believe God the way we believe. They want you to be like them. Why do they want you to be like them? If you don't behave like them, they call you a vagabond. They give you names. They tell you, oh, he's a rat. Oh, he's a bad man. Oh, he doesn't believe in three gods. Oh, he's stupid. They tag you, they give you an adjective, a negative one. Why do they want you to be like them? Why are they seeking you to join them? And that is all what we, the Jews all our life, has been defending. We are unique people. We are God's people. We want to live the life of the Torah. And when they say, no, you have to convert, we have to force them to convert. And if they don't convert, we kill them because they are stubborn. Noah was not looking to directly influence the world around him. That feeds into another classic explanation of this at the generation of Noah. And it also opened him up to criticism. Noah took care of Noah. The upside is that he remained uninfluenced by his generation. The downside is that he was unable to help people around him. There is always two sides. The upside part of it was that he was calm. He wasn't influenced by their action, by their doing of his days, by their evilness, by their greed, by their hamas, by their thievery. But the downside of it was that he was not able to save them. Because when you become so calm, people think, okay, he's a calm man, he's an easy-going man, he's a nice man. But will you be able to preach the Torah? Were you able to impart the word of life onto your neighbors, onto your brothers, onto your sisters? Even though if you are not born of the same mama and the same papa, are we able to tell them, this is life, it is free, take it? As the Messianic writing said, that the days of the judgment, Yeshua said, nobody knows, not even a messenger of Elohim, no any messenger of Elohim knows the day of judgment, only the Father himself. So don't allow anyone to come and tell you tomorrow is the day of judgment. It's lying. Don't allow a prophet to come and say, oh, I know when the judgment day will come. That is a story, because only the Father knows. He said it will be like the day of Noah. When they are giving to marry and they are married, they are making merriment, they are enjoying, they are committing crime, they are committing sin. There is this greed everywhere. They don't care. Our days are long. I'm just what? I'm 30 years old. I'm 40 years old. I'm 45 years old. I still have long time. I need to acquire money and wealth. I'm 40 years old. I have $10 billion. It's not enough. I need more. And I will continue to be greedy. I will continue to amass wealth. I will continue to oppress and to destroy the planet. I don't care. I will continue to drink oil as much as I can. I will continue to pollute the planet as much as I can because I need more money. As an independent thinker and as an historical actor, not a reactor, he was entirely available to, as the verse testified, Noah walked with Elohim. That was the survival strategy, the legacy, and also the cost of Noah. Noah was an actor. He was not a reactor. He was an independent thinker of his days. He was not like, let's go along with them, as the Torah said, that wide is the road that leads into destruction, and narrow is the road that leads to eternal life. Yeshua stated. Wide is the road that leads to death, but narrow is the road that leads to life. Everybody want to conform to a particular thing. This is the time of the social media. I have to have my account in Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, or whatsoever, and so on, whatsoever, or Pinterest, or whatsoever. Tens of billions of them. Because if I don't have it, I'm not cool. If I don't have this one, oh, I am like an outdated person. You are not, you are not in the what? In the they call it streams, or in the streams now. You are not following the stream, the water, the way it flows. Oh, you are an outdated man. This man is a caveman. He doesn't understand. Noah was called a caveman, but he was an independent thinker. He wasn't reacting to their action, but he was an independent actor. They see all what the evil way, but he kept his calmness. He kept his way with his God. Today, the world is once again on the verge of destruction as Hamas, greed, avarice, and promiscuity, sexual immoralities everywhere is rife. When you tell a man that a 3-year-old baby cannot choose his or her sexuality, they tell you you're a vagabond or you're a bigot. Who are you to tell us that my son, who is 3 years old, cannot be a woman? Or how can my girl, who is a 3 years old, how can she think that he's a boy? I can transgender them. I can change their sex because I have the power, or because I have the knowledge. I can force a boy of 3 years old to be a woman, to be a girl, and I can force a girl of 2 years old to be a boy because he's playing with a boy's toy. That means he's a boy. How stupid is that? And how dumb have we become? Are we human beings or are we animals? Even though an animal cannot say that my baby who is a boy is a girl. A dog cannot say a he dog is a she dog. I don't understand. Are we human or are we an animal? Because in the days of Noah, I don't think they do that. Maybe they did it, I don't know. We've become completely a lunatic because of our actions. Moreover, the very nations whose task is to save the world, the nation of Israel, is being terrorized by Hamas, by Iran, and by the jihadists. Israel is standing alone against them, while the free world, the so-called free world, is aiding and abetting the terrorists, attempting to force Israel into national suicide. Wars, droughts, natural disaster, and financial collapse are the talks of the day the world over, while the hypocritical obsession to see Israel annihilated takes from page. Indeed, never before has the world seen been so close to resorting back into the original chaos as it is today. We can see the chaos that is around us. We can see the chaos that is moving everywhere. The immorality, the evil, the greed, the Wall Street. Even though between the main street, we're even greed within ourselves. The world, it has come to the stage of the world of Noah. When you do the way that you feel, you are free. This is a free life, right? It's freedom. I can do whatsoever I want. You don't own my life, I don't owe you nothing. But I can take everything that you have, I don't care. You suffer, you don't suffer, it's none of my business. As far as I'm comfortable, as far as my family is okay, as far as my wife dressed the best dressing and the best clothes, and I have the best car and the best private jet, what you suffer is none of my business. As I have the biggest mansion in the world, I don't care about you. That has been the stage of this world now. Greed and destruction. Only Torah can save only Torah can save humanity from self-destruction. Only the Torah, I repeat again, can save humanity from self-destruction. self-suicide. The Torah is the ark of Noah. The imminent arrival of Messiah and the dissemination of his Torah will usher in a new beginning for Israel and for all mankind. Torah is the only one that can save us. Torah is our ticket to the world to come. Torah is the only thing that can save humanity from its self-destruction, because the slope that we are going on is a slope of self-destruction, of self-suicide. Because man has taken this path of destruction, just like the days of Noah. And the Torah is the ark of Noah that can save us. So each and every one of us has to be ready to come into this ark. We have to accept and do the mitzvah, to do the will of the Torah, for Torah is life. It's a life to those who take hold of it. This is our ticket to the world to come. This is our ticket to the kingdom of God. Torah is the only way. There is no any other way. Yeshua said the Torah is the way, the truth, and the life. There is no one that can come to the Father except through the Torah, because He has become the living Torah to teach us and to lead us unto eternal life. This road has been paved for us. This road has been bulldozed and has been cleared by Yeshua HaMashiach. And He's saying your job is just to follow. Everything has been paved. It is not a rocket science. Just follow me. Do exactly what I did, and that is it. To usher in a new world, to save the world within the Torah. And without the Torah, we are heading into self-destruction. And I wish that all of us can think again on our path, on our way, on our actions, on our doing, and to do what is just and what is right. As the Torah said, justice shall you pursue. You shall pursue and you shall pursue justice. Shabbat Shalom.